Hi, this is Mr. Y. This is a game between Zach and AJ. Took place on January 7th of 2016. Zach had the white pieces, and he played e4. AJ played the French defense, e6. Zach developed his center. AJ played the standard move. Zach played knight c3, which is fine. Other option is advancing here, which keeps the knight out. So AJ took advantage of the opportunity to move the knight in, and then Zach pushed the pawn. Now here the normal move is to move the knight back this direction, keeping it safe. It's played 99.9% of the time. This has been played occasionally, very rarely, I think 12 times. And downside is that it leaves, this is what actually happened in the game, it leaves this pawn in a kind of awkward position. You're not going to be able to hold on to that. So then we have Zach played a move that's never been played, c4, which is good. I like it. I don't think it's as good as the book move, but it controls these controls these squares. And of course this pawn is also controlling you. So we have a very, very huge central control. And of course these pawns are both defended by pieces behind them. So we've got a very strong center. And this pawn is not long for this world. AJ responded going right after his center with c5. And Zach, rather than taking and exchanging, he pushed, maintaining his center. The next move AJ took, I would have rather have seen a developing move rather than releasing the tension right away. It's not awful. Anyway, but the result is that now Zach has a classic snowplow. And he also has a threat here, right? The threat is that the queen goes here with check, which wins the pawn. Of course, that pawn's going to be won eventually anyway. AJ spots that threat and moves her queen here, protecting this square, and also it's check, so the queen can't move out. So to get out of check, Zach moves his bishop to d2, striking back at the queen. Now the queen has to move. Now this bishop has vacated control of that pawn, so AJ has a new threat, moving her queen here. So now if Zach were to come up here with check and win the pawn, AJ would be able to simply take back here on that pawn. But Zach doesn't do that. Instead, he goes to bishop c4, develops another piece, which is pretty reasonable. Not as strong as winning the pawn, though. Especially since AJ is now taking this pawn. Probably better would have, the queen a4, bishop c3 is also sort of an obvious choice, just defending this pawn. But he comes out here. AJ snatches up the pawn. Rook b1. I really don't like this move. The thing about the rook on b1 here is it's not only attacking the rook, but it was also attacking this pawn here on e5. And putting the rook there, well, it gets the rook on an open file, but it doesn't really do anything about the threat here. And then we have bishop b5 check. Bobby Fischer liked to say, Patzer sees check, plays check. And that's kind of what this move is here. This check is pretty useless. It just develops a piece. Bishop comes back. Bishop takes, knight takes, and now for your effort, you've lost a bishop that was here and given AJ a knight over here. So not an advantageous exchange there. So we have, what do we have? Queen a4. Now finally this queen comes out, but it's a little too late. It does pin the knight, but it doesn't actually win this pawn anymore because the pawn is now defended. In fact, AJ goes ahead and snatches up another pawn. So now AJ has just snatched 3 pawns. So she's up 4 pawns to 1. Definitely winning at this point. Knight e2 was played. And then we have e3. I like this move. When you're up pawns, you want to exchange pawns. So Zach is obviously can win that pawn, but then AJ comes right back and wins this pawn, threatening the rook. And the rook will have to move and then move the queen away. So you don't lose any time doing this. In fact, that's what happened. We have bishop takes, queen takes, and then the rook goes here, protected by the knight, so you can't take it. And you can't go to any of these squares, obviously, with the queen. So the queen's going to have to retreat. She chooses to move to d5. c6 was also an option. Really, the main thing is to maintain your control of this square, which is being attacked by the rook. You want to hold that pawn. So we have rook g5 from Zach, which hits the queen, and AJ makes a move that no longer controls that pawn, and doesn't really. It's actually pretty dangerous. Queen d3. There's 2 possibilities here for white. White can do this, which is skewering a checkmate threat, or he can land a rook on the 7th rank, making a straight ahead checkmate threat. Of course, the queen is now defending that. So that's the move that he made. Is he went ahead and took the pawn, setting up a threat that's pretty nasty. And you'll notice now that this queen here. Let me get rid of these arrows. Oops! Now I've got extra arrows. Too many arrows. Let me get rid of some of them. Geez, this is harder than I thought. All right. Okay, now the arrows are gone. You'll notice this queen doesn't have any squares to go to. This is controlled by the queen, and the bishop. This is controlled by the rook. This square is available. This square is controlled by the queen. This is by the rook and the queen. This by the queen. This square is controlled by the knight. This square is controlled by the pawn and the queen. This square is controlled by the queen. This square is controlled by the queen. This square is not controlled. Oh, it's controlled by the rook. These 2 squares are controlled by the king. You can see we're just running out of squares. This square is no good. This square is no good. This square is no good. So there's a lot, and he can't take that because that's controlled by the pawn. Can't take that because that's controlled by the king. Lots of squares. They're all no-go for the queen. So she's in trouble if she gets checked. She has 1 square that she can go to. So, well, she doesn't. I don't think she spotted that because she moved. What did she do? Bishop e7. Well, actually, which is a pretty good move. When I think about it, it gains tempo on the rook. This square is still there, and Zach now. Well, he should have taken advantage of the fact that this queen was trapped. Probably the best move is a check on the queen. So now, well, it does free up this square. This square is now available as well as that square. But let's say AJ goes to one of those. Let's say AJ goes there with check. We have king goes there. And then AJ will probably castle. And then we have knight d5, which hits the queen again. And now the queen really is trapped. I don't think there are any squares that are available. Oh, yeah, no, this square is controlled by the knight. That square is no good anymore. That square, that square, that square, that square, that square, that square. No, that one looks like it might be available. Huh. Nope, rook. And rook and queen. Yep. Okay, so that queen is well and truly trapped at this point. But Zach didn't spot that here with the knight, or actually 2 moves with the knight. Right, first one going I'm lost. Yeah, that was the move. What was another possibility is something like rook b3 also hits the queen with similar results, but not quite as dramatic. Instead, he well, I didn't like this. Like I said, you got to be aware of what you have here. You have a rook on the 7th rank that is attacking primarily this knight with a checkmating threat. The only thing defending it is the queen. And if you exchange it off, then the checkmating threat goes away, which is what happened in the game. Granted, you want a pawn, but I'd say the rook on the 7th is worth a pawn anyway. So you don't want to get rid of that rook on the 7th. You end up with a queen on the 7th, which just isn't as good because it's only one piece and is not coordinating with anything else at this point. So that's really the lesson here of this particular game, is to be aware of what you have. A, you have a trapped queen, and B, you have a rook on the 7th, which are both extremely valuable, and you have to coordinate your attack so that you take care of one or the other, and then win the game. But instead, we didn't. So we have the rook takes pawn, which is just sort of gives up the entire advantage. Queen now on the 7th. Bishop takes g5. The rook falls to the bishop. AJ castles. We have a4 from Zach, and then AJ just sort of finishes this off. Rook here, bishop e7. This was a mistake. I think Zach was shattered at this point, and really a much better move is down here. Although not really much better, it's a little better. It doesn't just simply give up the bishop like this one does, because this is just erased in a moment. Queen a8 check. Knight goes back here, preventing the back rank check. And then we have queen f3. Again, a mistake, clearly. I like this next move rather than do the obvious, taking the queen. AJ says, I can win this another way anyway. Which kind of interesting. Zach takes the queen, getting the queen out, and at this point, white resigns because the knight is pinned. We have a pawn coming down. There's really no good way out of this. Let's just make a passing move, queen a5, or pawn a5. Knight takes check, king f1, and there's no stopping the pawn. We'll go this way. Then we have knight e6, and the knight's going to eventually get in on the act. All right. So that's the end of this game. Nice game by Black, except for this move here with the queen down into the enemy territory, getting her essentially trapped. Yeah, it puts a hit on the rook, but that rook is going away anyway. He's going up there. And now the knight is in bad shape. Or the queen, rather, is in bad shape. A good game, both of you. Definitely worth looking at. I'll see you next week. Go play chess.